Time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Young Mustard is back with another video, and I have to say James Harden has done it again. Y'all know how it is when it comes to James. Rinse, cycle, repeat. Go to a franchise, raise the expectations, fail in the playoffs, then quit. And look, this situation in Philly is a lot different than all the other ones, and I understand that. But at a certain point in time, I have to look at James Harden and say, maybe you are the problem in all these situations because you're the common denominator. And it's wild because I understand James Harden's point of view, but at the end of the day, James Harden is in a situation that a lot of players in his position would kill for. But before I give my thoughts on the James Harden fiasco, you guys make sure you drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again. Thank you, man.
When I saw that video waking up in the morning a couple of days ago, I honestly thought it was fake. And when I realized it was real, I was like, man, is this some kind of 2K24 promo? Because the background looks so weird. Then I realized he was in China, which if he's gonna slander Daryl Morey and talk negatively about him, then China is probably the worst place for him to do that as far as if you're Daryl Morey's perspective. Because we all know the history of Daryl Morey in China and all that other stuff. I truly do believe that looking at this situation, I can understand both perspectives. Let's start off with James Harden's side of things. Harden, despite him not being at the MVP caliber level that he was in Houston, is still an all-star to all-NBA caliber player. He just finished up a season in which he averaged 21 points a game, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds, shooting 44% from the field, 39% from 3, 87% at the free throw line, with a true shooting percentage of 61%, on a Philly team that was one of the best offenses in the league, and he enhanced Joel Embiid's game to where he finally captured his first and only MVP award. If I'm James Harden, I understand that I am not who I used to be, but I also understand that despite me not being who I used to be, I'm still one of the 15 to 20 best players in the league, and Philly is not just gonna find that on trees. Then on top of that, Daryl Morey and James Harden had an agreement last year. Harden opted out of his contract, which would have gave him $47 million that season, and instead took a $15 million pay cut. The deal allowed them to pick up other players on the roster, such as a DeAnthony Melton, PJ Tucker, and Daniel House. Harden was very aware that he was just not at the level that he was in Houston. He understood that he underperformed against Miami, and the team just wasn't where they needed to be in order to win a championship or at least contend for one. It was a very selfless move, and I understood that Harden actually wanted to win, which is why he did it. Now, at the time, unbeknownst to us, Daryl Morey actually promised James Harden that he was going to give him the max contract if Harden agreed to take that pay cut. And if I'm James Harden, now that Daryl Morey doesn't want to give me that contract, I can completely understand him being angry with the situation and not wanting to play for Daryl Morey. I mean, this is a guy that's had your back since you came into the league damn near, or at least since you became a star caliber player when you were traded to the Houston Rockets. On top of that, he even wanted you personally in Philly once he got there. So it's clear that those two had some type of relationship that was very positive over the course of their careers. James Harden feeling the way that he feels, to me, is very valid, and I can't be mad at it because at the end of the day, a handshake agreement is still some type of an agreement. If he was promised money in advance if he did something that Daryl Morey wanted him to do as a favor, Harden has every right to feel betrayed because in all actuality he was. But then on the other hand, I can understand Daryl Morey's perspective because yes, it is bad business practice to make any type of handshake agreement, in my personal opinion, because a handshake agreement is simply that, a handshake agreement. I think most people in the league are not giving James Harden a max contract under any circumstances. Harden may be still one of the 15 to 20 best players in the league, but a max contract is something that should be reserved for the top 10 to 12 guys. And it's not just that James Harden is not in that range, because you could be a young player on the come up and get a max contract. For example, look at Darius Garland. But if you're James Harden, you are on the decline. You're not getting any younger. You're not entering your prime. You're leaving it. And on top of that, you are a player that over the last 2 seasons in Philadelphia, you've really accomplished nothing. You've had some really solid regular seasons, but on top of those regular seasons, once you enter the playoffs, you consistently have underperformed in the biggest moments. In your first playoffs with the Sixers, you were very inconsistent from the beginning of the playoffs against the Toronto Raptors, and you wrapped up the series being extremely passive, which is uncharacteristic for the James Harden that they traded for. In the second half of that Game 6, which was the elimination game of the series, I expected you to come out guns a-blazing even if you're inefficient, but you chose to do the opposite. You didn't even take shots. In the second half, you only took 2 shots and went scoreless in an elimination game. That's unacceptable behavior. Fast forward to the next season where you have a stellar regular season that I highlighted earlier on in this video. You led the league in assists, and then in the playoffs, you remind everybody, including the Philadelphia 76ers, who you are, a folder. You could have literally bet the over and under every game for James Harden and became a millionaire, especially against the Boston Celtics, where you went from like 40 pieces to 10-point games, 30 pieces to 12-point games, and capped it off in the last 3 games going scoreless in the fourth quarter, including a 9-point stinker in a Game 7. Harden's inconsistency in that series was truly embarrassing. And to be fair to James Harden, I understand that a lot of their wins in that series, you could attribute him as the primary reason why. But the same thing applies to their losses, as James Harden, you could argue, was the biggest reason why they lost a lot of those games. So on top of you being a playoff underperformer, you're in decline, you're not getting any younger, you're exiting your prime, and on top of that, nobody else in the league wants to give you a max contract, so why would I? I understand that Daryl Morey and James Harden had a handshake agreement, but as I mentioned earlier, a handshake agreement is simply a handshake agreement. Things change over time, and at the end of the day, Daryl Morey may have promised you something, but he's not the owner of the team. He's only the GM. Of course, he controls a huge part of the organization's moves, but he's still just a voice in the organization. He does not have the final say, and as proof of that, you can look at some of the signings and moves over the last couple of years. And this is not the first time that we have heard of a handshake agreement or a verbal agreement done, and things change over time. Chris Paul made a handshake verbal agreement that he was going to stay with the Clippers in 2018, and obviously once they flamed out yet again in the playoffs, Chris Paul decided to leave and join, ironically, James Harden in the Houston Rockets, along with Daryl Morey in the front office as well. Unless you're putting pen to paper, nothing is official when it comes to your money, and James Harden should know that better than most. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say. What about Joel Embiid? Well, I understand that side of the argument completely, but for one, this is not a video about Joel Embiid, this is a video about James Harden. And secondly, Joel Embiid, though he underperformed in the playoffs alongside James Harden, he is still the clear better player among the two. You're not trading Joel Embiid or not giving him a max contract because he produces at a level that warrants that kind of payment. James Harden unfortunately does not. And sure, Embiid's play doesn't carry over into the postseason, but in the regular season, there's still value to have an MVP on your roster, or at least somebody playing at that caliber of a level, which Joel Embiid is doing. Unfortunately, you just can't say the same thing for James Harden. Now, I will say this before I end the video, because there is still more to this situation. Once James Harden requested his trade out of Philadelphia, after realizing that they weren't going to give him the contract that he was promised the year prior, Philadelphia decided to trade him after Daryl Morey said they would, and then they changed their minds. Now, this is where, once again, I have to say this is a business. Because for Harden to just publicly blast Daryl Morey like that, especially in China of all places, for one, you might have potentially just ruined his entire career. A guy that has stuck his neck out for you numerous times and tried to give you literally everything that you wanted. But also, you have to understand that this may not be a Daryl Morey call. Morey has done so much for you and traded a haul for you. I truly do believe a lot of this situation has been caused due to people higher above Daryl Morey in the organization. And for James Harden to just take all of that out on Daryl Morey, I just think is unfair. Like I said, I understand James Harden's point of view when it comes to not being traded, especially after they said they trade him. But I do understand that Daryl Morey is not always going to be the culprit of everything that happens in the organization as far as the front office moves are concerned. He's the GM. He's not the owner of the team. And as much as Harden may want to be out of the situation that he's in, he has to understand that he's not in that bad of a situation. You're playing alongside the MVP of the NBA, a player that probably complements you better than 99% of the league. You can decline peacefully alongside somebody like Joel Embiid. And on top of that, Tobias Harris' contract is also going to expire after next season. You also have a young up-and-coming guard in Tyrese Maxey. Even if you don't think those pieces are enough to win, you could move on from Maxey and get somebody in return that could help you win. And Morey has already proven to you that he is willing to listen to your suggestions about what the team needs around you. At the end of the day, what this team needs to win a championship is you and Joel Embiid to step up in the playoffs. And yes, Embiid is involved in that as well, but guess what? You didn't hold up your end of the bargain in that game 7 also. It wasn't just about Joel Embiid. You didn't even get double digits in that game. You didn't score in the fourth quarter of the last 3 games in that series. Harden has to take some level of accountability and understand that the situation that he's in right now, he's a bigger reason why it's a mess than Daryl Morey is. But those are just my thoughts and opinions. If you guys disagree, then let me know down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media. The links are down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.